Get started then. 5:04. Cheryl, can you do a roll call, please?
Yes. Chair Akins?
Here.
Vice Chair Condry?
Here.
Commissioner James?
Here.
Commissioner McCatton?
Here.
Commissioner Prebor?
Here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. If you, is James going to put up, someone going to put up, there we go. Okay, if you'll stand with me, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, right hand over heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which
it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Great, thank you all.
Hey, Fred, can you put your earphones on?
How are we doing there? Okay, public communications. Public communications is a time set aside during the Historic Preservation Commission meeting for members of the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. Matters raised at this time may be briefly discussed by the commission and will generally be referred to staff and or placed on a subsequent agenda. Under state law, other than for emergency items, no action can be taken at this meeting. I didn't reach out to Wendy for the museum report, but we will go to consent items, minutes of the January 13th, 2022 meeting. Do we have any modifications that we need to reflect?
I don't have any.
No.
Me either.
No, I don't either. No. Okay, great. So do we have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
Yes, motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call, please.
Akins?
Yes.
Condry?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McCatton?
Yes.
Prebor?
Yes.
Okay, great. I talked about public communications, but for Cheryl, do we have any general public communications?
So we do have 8 attendees in the queue or the waiting room. If anyone would like to speak on public comment, if you can use the raise hand feature at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, again, this isn't item number 2. This is just general public comments.
Fred, that's you.
Okay.
I do believe we have.
Oh, Fred says he can't raise his hand.
Okay, so I will bring him in to the meeting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Great.
Hello, Fred.
Hello, Brian. Shall I go?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to the Historic Preservation Commission. And I wanted to make 3 general points about this concept of creating a historic district in downtown Ojai.
Okay, that's item number 2.
Oh, sorry.
So, Fred, do you have anything that's not to share with us that's not related to item number 2?
I do not.
Okay, then we will hold you until item number 2. Okay. So, Cheryl, anybody else that's not for item number 2?
I do not see any raised hands for public comment.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Then we will move to the discussion item number 2, discussion of potential downtown historic district, and ask for a staff report from Lucas.
Yeah, I'll give a brief update here. Good evening, commissioners and the community and those on TV land. On January 18th of this year, the Historic Preservation Commission conducted and was a part of an ad hoc committee, or not ad hoc, but joint meeting with City Council. And they focused on the discussion on the 18th regarding the Downtown Historic District. And after a PowerPoint presentation that was put together and presented by Commissioner McHatton, and comments that were received and provided by both the City Council and Historic Preservation Commission, the City Council actually voted 4-1 to move forward with getting information, feedback, and looking to move forward with a potential downtown historic district. And from that, staff has been working on putting together a staff report and having this item discussed before the Historic Preservation Commission tonight. The focus is recommending, staff is recommending the commission discuss the matter, including things such as schedule, timeline, next steps as a part of this, as well as public outreach. Staff is also recommending, and I'm seeing people in the audience tonight virtually taking public comment with this as well. And then from that, identifying direction and next steps. I want to just identify that there isn't a decision being made tonight, but certainly this is a great informational piece tonight, and we're looking to kind of nail down some of that direction and figuring out how to get public feedback. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the commission. If the commission has any questions of staff, I could certainly answer them as well.
Okay, does the commission have any questions of Lucas as staff at this time?
I don't know.
No, okay. I am going to the other night, or actually I attended here. I attended the council the other night, Tuesday night, and Mayor Betsy raised 3 suggestions to the council, and I like them. So I know we're going to have an interchange tonight. It may get, as Betsy mentioned the other night, passionate, or we may not. But the 3 things she reminded the council, and I remind us, that if you want to make a comment, please raise your hand. And there's to be no crosstalk. When you're done talking, that will come back to me. Item number 2, be brief and to the point. Item number 3, refrain from comment or deliberative discussion until after we have heard from all members. So I thought those were good, and it seemed to have made an improvement to me. An improvement, right? We were just talking about this. So if we can keep those in mind. Okay, so I have asked, we have the ad hoc committee, as you know, was originally there were 4 people in here when we had 7 commissioners. Cindy was our 4th at that time, and then she dropped off when we came down to 5 commissioners. The 3 that have been involved is Commissioner McHatton, Craig Walker, and myself directly. And then we have depended upon and relied upon outside sources that know both our valley from experiences in living here, and also the codes that cover much of what we're talking about, because again, experience from while living here and beyond. So I have asked 2 presenters, 2 of these individuals to come and to share guidance with us. And first off, I would like Dawn Teading, if she would be our first presenter, and Craig Walker, if he would be our second presenter. So Dawn?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, commissioners and public. Allow me to introduce myself. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Dawn Teading, and I have been involved with cultural resources and historic preservation in the city of Ojai since 2014. I was instrumental in working with the Chumash Tribal Chair, Julie Tumamite Stensley, in establishing procedures for Ojai's Native American cultural resources, and I was awarded the City of Ojai Historic Preservation Award in 2018. I've been involved in Ojai history matters for years and worked for the Ojai Valley Museum for 5 years. Regarding the matter at hand, on May 21st, 2021, Laura Rearwin Ward, publisher and now owner of the Ojai Valley newspaper, authored an editorial titled, quote, "What does it mean to be a local citizen?" In the editorial, she stated that, quote, "A lack of understanding of local laws, policies, government process, or the history of an issue can sometimes cause setbacks to local progress, end quote. I would like to set the record straight on the matter of a, quote, potential downtown Ojai historic district for each of these issues and submit the following for the record. Firstly, local law. Ojai Municipal Code Section 10-2.103B1 requires all development within the city be consistent with the general plan. Regarding policy, Cultural Resources Policy number 2 of the Ojai General Plan states that the city shall strive to identify and preserve historical resources. Regarding government process, Ojai's Historic Preservation Law is found in Chapter 8 of Title 4 of the Ojai Municipal Code. The chapter states that the purpose of historic preservation establishes a City Historic Preservation Commission and delineates the city's historic preservation law, including government process. Now that I've covered local law, policies, and government process, I will move on to the history of the issue at hand. The HPC has been working on a downtown historic district proposal for nearly 3 years. Recently, in October 2021, the city was informed that the downtown Ojai Historic District is a historical resource and is listed on the California Register of Historical Resources. This as a result of the federal review process required under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act for the City of Ojai's Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety Improvements Project. A historical resources evaluation report for the downtown corridor was prepared by independent professionals and reviewed and approved by Caltrans. The State Office of Historic Preservation concurred with this determination that the downtown Ojai Historic District is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. The July 12, 2018 State of California Office of Historic Preservation concurrence letter is again provided with my comments to the city with the submission. In the spirit of transparency, I would request that this letter accompany the Historic Resources Evaluation Report moving forward. As a result of the downtown Ojai Historic District being formally determined eligible for listing on the National Register, the downtown Ojai District and its 28 contributing resources were automatically listed on the California Register per California Public Resource Code Section 5024.1 D1. Excuse me. Properties listed on the Historical Register of Historical Resources are considered historical resources for the purpose of the California Environmental Quality Act, otherwise known as CEQA, under Public Resource Code Section 21084.1 and California Code of Regulations Section 15064.5A1. As such, environmental review will be required for discretionary projects. This review is required under state law regardless of any potential local designation by the city. So the question is not whether Ojai should designate downtown a historic district. It already is one. The state of California has determined that for us. The downtown Ojai Historic District is a significant piece of California's history and our nation's past and is listed in the online publicly accessible California Office of Historic Preservation Built Environment Resource Directory, otherwise known as BERD, for Ventura County, ID number 678616. The question is now, what do we do with these facts? Does Ojai designate a downtown Ojai Historic District on a local level? The state report, otherwise known as the Caltrans report, only focused on Ojai in the context of state and national history. The downtown district was identified for its important association for commercial, institutional development in Ojai, its association with Edward Drummond Libby, and as an early example of a unified Spanish town plan in the Mission Revival style, as well as representing the work of master architects Frank Mead and Richard Requa. The period of significance designated was 1917 to 1928. The Ojai Historic Preservation Commission Downtown Ojai Historic District proposal is more complete and considers all of Ojai's history on a local level. Recognizing Ojai's downtown historic district on a local level affords property owners financial and other tangible benefits, and in accordance with local preservation law, quote, promotes the economic and general welfare of the city in order to preserve the historic, architectural, cultural, and natural heritage of the city, and to make the citizens of the city and visitors to the city mindful of this heritage, per Ojai Municipal Code, Section 4-8.02. I hope this clarifies local laws, policies, government process, and the history of the issue of a potential downtown Ojai Historic District on a local level. I encourage property owners within the locally proposed historic district to recognize what they have and the benefits afforded by a local historic district designation, and that the owners and the city council will support and preserve downtown Ojai for the heritage of the city, its residents and visitors, and for generations to come. Ojai is its history, and history is the downtown Ojai Historic District. The state of California has named downtown Ojai a historic district. I hope that Ojai will now recognize it, respect its history, and add their stamp of approval to preserve it as a locally designated downtown Ojai Historic District. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Don. Craig? There he is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
You can.
My name is Craig Walker. I'm a local historian who has been assisting the Historic Preservation Commission on this project for the last 2 years. I have volunteered my time because I see the importance of managing and protecting Ojai's historic resources. From the beginning, one of the guiding principles of the ad hoc Historic District Committee has been to add as few additional requirements for property owners as possible while providing them with access to as many benefits as possible. I believe the HPC has done a remarkable job in meeting this goal. It is important to reiterate what we are discussing here today is not whether downtown Ojai should become a historic district. The state of California made that decision 4 years ago. Downtown Ojai is a historic district. It is listed on the California Register of Historic Places and has been deemed eligible for the National Register. State designation already requires that any proposed demolition or alteration of a historic building in the district be reviewed by the HPC. The standards for review are the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties, the same standards used by the HPC when reviewing projects that affect local landmarks. In documenting the downtown Ojai Historic District, the state named 28 properties as contributing structures. These are now listed as historic resources on the California Register. The city's Historic Preservation Commission, the HPC, surveyed the downtown and determined that 27 additional buildings, including 12 existing city landmarks, should be included as contributing properties. Most of the downtown historic properties already require historic review by the HPC. 16 buildings are city landmarks. Projects affecting landmarks have been reviewed by the HPC for over 35 years. Another 24 are now listed on the California Register through the recent state designation, which makes them subject to historic review. 15 additional properties are historic resources named in the HPC survey. The 40 buildings within the district that are non-contributing only require planning director approval unless new construction or major alterations would in some way negatively impact the historic character of the downtown. The Chevron service station, for example, would only be reviewed by the HPC if some new addition or renovation would detract from the historic character of the district as a whole. The city already has enough design guidelines in place that anything so dramatic wouldn't be allowed even under the current guidelines. So if downtown Ojai already is a state historic district, and if most remodel projects on contributing properties must already be reviewed by the HPC under state law, why should the city of Ojai name the downtown a local district on top of the state designation? First, a locally defined historic district will give the downtown local recognition for its historical and architectural significance. This is important for educational purposes and for managing downtown development in a coherent, meaningful way. More importantly, however, the city of Ojai must designate a local district so that property owners can avail themselves of a multitude of local, state, and federal incentives that will help them maintain their historic building. The Mills Act offers significant property tax reductions to compensate property owners for rehabilitating, restoring, and maintaining their historic buildings. Both the state of California and the federal government offer a 20% to 25% historic rehabilitation tax credit. That's a dollar for dollar credit to reimburse owners for rehabilitation projects. Local governments often provide incentives of their own, such as fee waivers, expedited reviews, and zoning waivers. Within a locally adopted district, owners of contributing properties can use the less restrictive state historic building code, which will save them considerable red tape, time, and money when working on their buildings. Now that downtown Ojai is on the state register of historic places and owners must follow state standards when altering their historic buildings, it makes sense that the city would support these downtown property owners with whatever benefits are available. If the city declines this opportunity, they will be denying themselves and downtown businesses the tools and funding they need to properly maintain Ojai's historic downtown. Thank you.
Hello there. Thank you very much, Craig and Don. Do any of the commissioners have questions about what Don and Craig presented to us before we move to public comment?
No, but thank you.
Yeah, I don't have questions, but Brian, are we going to have a chance to speak before public comments as well?
You're only supposed to ask questions about the staff presentation and before we move to public comment.
We don't have commissioner discussion
No,
because what?
That's afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Did I get that right, Mara? I see Lucas. I don't see Lucas's. Yeah, I read through the agenda today.
Yes, you
yeah,
do.
and yesterday and the day before, I think. I'm trying to make sure I got that. So that's where we are, Cindy. We will have any questions to the presentation. If there are no questions, then we will move to public comment. So no questions to Don and to Craig?
No question.
No,
Yes.
no questions.
Very clear, very clear.
Okay, great. Thank you, Valerie. Okay, Cheryl, we will then move on to open it up to public comments and move on to the people who are online who would like to talk.
Okay, we have Bill Miley.
Okay. Hello, Bill.
Hi, good evening. For the record, my name is Bill Miley. My family arrived here in 1968. In preparation for this event, I looked at minutes of the past HPC. I viewed the entire January 18th joint meeting. I also read Barbara Bowman and John Lambert in the Ojai, and I'm familiar with the Caltrans report. 1, since history is a record of the past, without evidence of the past, there's little history. Maybe words and pictures and drawing models. With Ojai's very unique history, which I doubt others can match, the built history is key to keeping it. 2, Los Angeles got built because they stole water. San Francisco got built because they drained and scoured the Sierra Nevada mountains. What did Ojai do? We nurtured the valley with citrus trees, and we were nurtured by Mr. Libby. 3, having buildings which go back chronologically 75 to 100 years is wonderful. Mr. Libby was the key for it all. Saving our own buildings, his work, his caring, his thinking futuristically and believing in the beyond, which all of you do. And he also saved the Arvilla Oaks because he bought all that to keep Los Angeles company from coming up here and turning it into firewood. 4, our downtown's it. The Y doesn't come close. And I kind of mixed up which elements are landmarks, so let's skip over that part. I feel the other built structures that aren't landmarked are part of the downtown mass. Barbara spoke of additional steps owners would have to take to get approval for building work. I acknowledge that, but I think it's doable. John spoke of the value and support they got from HBC for the trellis in the building on the bookstore. Owning a downtown building in Ojai should be a joy and rewarding. Having a building become part of a Ojai historic district should be fulfilling and foundational, like it will live forever. Like me, 7. Like me, I am very old and getting older and wish I could apply for a living historical landmark district membership. I would use the Mills Act tax break to upgrade and replace some of my body parts. 8, that's funny, guys. Assuming historical district designation will not rope off the buildings, I see value being added as future days and years accumulate, enriching our city citizens and friends and visitors. With our Ojai Museum storing and sharing Ojai's history, we can't lose. Win-win. And then trees talk to each other by roots. I think maybe the buildings talk to each other through their fasteners. And last, I suggest what we're doing here be shared with students in both our public and private schools. This is an example of history being saved, a good case study in good government, participatory government, and citizen government. Let's share it with our kids. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Bill. Cheryl, next.
We have Fred Fisher.
Okay.
Good evening, commissioners.
Hello.
My name is Fred Fisher. I live at 607 North Signal Street in Ojai, a property that our family acquired in 2009. I'm an architect. I've built houses in Ojai in particular, and recently the new Ojai Valley School campus. I'm on the board of the Ojai Music Festival, and have experience in living in a historic neighborhood, HPOZ in Los Angeles, and my own office building is a Los Angeles Cultural Heritage Monument. So this is an issue which I've been professionally and personally immersed in for my entire career. In particular, we renovated the William Randolph Hearst and Marion Davies Beach House in Santa Monica, which is now the Annenberg Community Beach House, including National Landmark Structures by Julia Morgan. So the first point really I want to make is that something you all know, Ojai is a unique combination of its extraordinarily beautiful landscape, its working agricultural community, and its thriving cultural and educational ecology. It also has a strongly unified architectural environment. The architectural ensemble is fragile. The combination of pieces contributes to the whole. It needs awareness and protection, and there are tangible and intangible benefits to creating a historic district. I was actually surprised that there wasn't already a local historic district, but I'm here tonight to strongly support the notion of following the state that Ojai have its own historic preservation district for the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
We have Kristen Reigns.
Okay. Hello, Kristen.
Kristen, if you could unmute yourself, you're muted.
Hello, everyone. I'm just here as an observer trying to understand what's happening. So thank you for this opportunity to learn more about this situation.
Well, thank you for being here.
We have an attendee.
You're muted, Cheryl.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have one person in the waiting room. The name states Supervisor, so I'm going to let that person in the room.
Do we know who that is?
I'm not sure. That's how they register their name in Zoom.
Can we get an identification from them or invite them in and get that then?
Sure, I'm happy to invite them in and we'll allow them to identify themselves.
Great, thank you.
They too will have to unmute themselves.
So Supervisor, can you please unmute yourself and please turn your camera on?
I'm not saying anything. We could put them back in the waiting room.
Yeah, could we please put Supervisor in the queue and then we'll bring somebody else up until they may be ready. Thank you.
We have Tracy.
Okay, Tracy, could you?
Hi. Hi. Hello. My name is Tracy McDonald Reigns, and I'm here just kind of learning as well. I happen to be a property owner in the arcade, so thanks for this opportunity as I learn more about this whole process.
Well, thank you for joining us. Would it be okay to, I didn't ask Kristen this, but with the two Reigns names, would you be comfortable sharing your relationship with Alan?
I was Alan's first daughter-in-law married to Jeff, but I have a separate building myself in the arcade.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
As you may know, the HBC were the ones that recognized Alan for the Lifetime Achievement Award. And so
yes,
the last name is special to us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, very nice. Thank you for doing that as well.
We do have 3 other logins or individuals, but they all have the same name. They state Jenny Prebor. So I'm not quite sure. Maybe I'll choose one and allow to talk.
Oh, you know what? You know what I bet that is? I bet that's when I forwarded the link.
Okay.
So let's just invite them in and they can introduce themselves. But I did invite about 40 people to the meeting, but I might have messed up and forwarded them my personal link.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I'll go through each of them. So we have 3.
Hi, Cheryl.
Yes, hi.
I am not Jenny's twin.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi, this is Tracy Wilson. I'm a longtime Ojai resident and wanted to engage in this process this evening. I don't have any comments at this time, but thank you.
Thank you for being here, Tracy.
Absolutely. Thanks for all your volunteerism to protect the city.
Thank you. And I, of course, speak for everyone here.
So we have 2 others that also state Jenny Prebor, but I'm trying to keep track of them and make sure I don't choose the same person. So if I do by accident, I apologize and I'll go down the list.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. I'm actually on my cell phone and I can't figure out how to do the video. So
Okay, we
I,
get it.
okay, I was an invited guest, or Jenny reached out and informed me of the meeting this evening. My name is Christine Bednar, and sort of a recent Ojai resident of about almost 8 years. So just interested to learn more, and I appreciate the dialogue. Thank you.
Great. Well, Christine, thank you for being here and joining us tonight. We have one more, Jenny Prebor. Cheryl?
We do have one more. I think this is
We're everywhere. We're everywhere.
Not hearing anything. Are they, you're muted, Miss Prebor, the third.
Maybe they just want to listen and not speak. I mean, I'm not sure
that's a good point. Commissioner Prebor's got a good point. You know, we had mentioned in the beginning having people raise their hands that are in the attendees, and I see Kristin Reigns has actually raised her hand. Kristen Reigns, but I'm not seeing any more raised hands at this point, at least.
Well, I do know a lot of the people.
Now a second one.
Okay. A lot of the people wanted to just be a part of the discussion, so maybe not knowing enough yet to speak.
They're a sponge right now.
Okay, so we do have 2 raised hands, as Lucas mentioned. So we have Kristen Reigns.
Okay, great.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, when you first called my name, I wasn't quite ready to speak. But I'm ready.
Okay.
And I am Jan and Alan's youngest daughter, and I'm here with Jan Reigns.
Oh.
And so together we just wanted to say thank you to the commission for honoring Alan. That was so meaningful to him. He really appreciated that. And that was a really special honor. So thank you. And as you know, our family's been in town since 1914. So we've been around a while. And of course, we have the Reigns in the middle of the arcade, so we're really interested in this. I'm wondering if somebody could talk a little bit more about the timeline. I didn't really get any information about that from what you said so far, and I'm just curious, is this going to go quickly? Will this take time? I wonder if somebody could elaborate on that.
Lucas, do you want to answer that question, or what would you like to do?
I would say let's take all comments, and then we can, I would say, as a commission, work through some of these questions and comments that come up.
Okay, great. And Kristen, thank you for being here, and thank you for having Jan with us. Jan, having you and Alan there that night to receive that award was just, touching and amazing. And we were so very happy that that was presented to him before he passed. So thank you both.
And we have a raised hand for Jenny Prebor.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Cheryl. Again, this is Tracy Wilson. Jenny, thanks for sending me the link today and prompting me to join this evening. I would like to just comment that my family's been in the Ojai Valley, came here in 1943. We have a citrus ranch in the East End and have been members of the community. My grandparents were school teachers here and parent. And so I think having been a part of history of the Ojai Valley for a long time, as our family has, the notion of how to preserve the character of the community is so important to so many of us. And I do think that the consideration of a historic district for Ojai is really important. I know that there are, having been a former journalist myself and having covered quite a lot of issues of, dealing with municipal government and dealing with how, redevelopment districts, historic districts can very often provide opportunities for creative growth in a way that is really consistent with the character. And I think one of the reasons that Ojai is such a desirable place for people to visit and to move to is because there has been such careful and thoughtful planning. And I really, really hope that we see that continue. And so I would just echo some of what's been said this evening, that as I'm still learning about and reading quite a bit about the projects and proposals, I would just say that from the 30,000 foot range, I think it's just really important that we're really mindful of how we're going to preserve and protect our community for future generations. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Tracy. Wise counsel. Cheryl, anybody else that's here for public comment?
I do not see anyone else here for comment.
Okay, are we okay to close public comment then?
Hey, if we could, oh, there we go. I was gonna say it looked like we had one more hand raised, but they just put their hand down, so we're good.
Okay. Great, okay, then we will close public comment. We will move on to comments by the commissioners. Here's the order I would like to go, if we could, please. I'd like to have Gina speak because she's our from our ad hoc committee. After that, I would like to have Cindy, our vice chair, speak, and then Jenny Prebor, and then Valerie James. So Gina, if you could unmute and share guidance with us.
Hello. Well, I promise not to talk as long as last time. Okay, so well, not to start out sappy here, but I am so grateful that I was able to have this wonderful project to dive into during the last 2 years. Chair Brian Akins and historian Craig Walker have given me hope for the future as we look to the past. I've learned so much and I continue to learn more and more from them every day. I would also like to thank Council for their kind words in my slide presentation and for the 4-5 vote in support to move forward. I would like to say that as we do move forward to do public outreach and look for consensus, however, that becomes decided by city officials with a much higher pay grade than myself, and well, or non-paid commission, I would ask that we really reflect on what we are asking. It would be misleading to ask for a vote whether or not they want a downtown historic district, because that ship has sailed. No matter what happens, the state of California has determined that the Ojai Downtown Historic District is a significant piece of California's history and our nation's past, and is listed publicly with the California Office of Historic Preservation. It would be like asking me, a resident and longtime homeowner in the city of Ojai, if I wanted to vote to be a resident and homeowner of the city of Ojai. So let us be mindful when we have these discussions of how this is to be asked, and refer to the State Historic Preservation Office, the National Park Service, and the Department of the Interior for guidance. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Gina. Thank you for all your work. I think we'll sleep sometime in the near future, hopefully. Vice Chair Combry.
Hi everybody. Sorry, I don't have enough Wi-Fi to support video, so I just have to speak without video. But I actually want to go back in time to January 18th, 2022, when we had our joint meeting with the City Council. And at the end of that meeting, the direction from Council, well, just to remind everybody, that was the very first time that this designation, local designation, was presented. And the meeting had been delayed, what, 2 years, Brian? At least a year, because of COVID. So it was a very delayed meeting. It was the very first time the council was, educated about the downtown district. And our direction from council at the end of that meeting was to, come back as a commission and create an informational presentation to the community and the business owners. But what happened is our newspaper the next day ran a headline about the Ojai is going to have a historic downtown. And, the article was fairly accurate. There were a few problems. But the following week, there was a really deliberately written editorial that was just completely full of misinformation. And I think that is what really caused a lot of conversation and questions and fear and problems in the town. So my comments are to go through that letter, the letter that Barbara Bowman wrote, which again was, really full of misinformation, and the editorial, because it's, for instance, I know, Tracy Reigns, that you're here and you're a property owner, and I know that you had questions about what you've read in the paper, and I just want to let the property owners know that we haven't had time to create information and a presentation and what this means. We were given that direction less than 3 weeks ago, but the newspaper ran with it, and now everybody's up in arms. So just want to bring that out there. But, I'll start with Barbara Bowman's letter. In her letter, she talks about how many of the parcels are not historic, but 2/3 of the buildings in the core are historic or listed or qualifying. And I think Craig Walker addressed that in his comments. Also, the California Environmental Quality Act states that all buildings constructed before 1972 may be deemed historic based on their location and characteristics. So just to recap that, 2/3 of the downtown is, qualifies as a historic whether or not the district exists, but the state has already decided it exists. Then Barbara talks about rebates and how rebates don't, what does she say? She said rebates are only paid as a percentage of the cost to replace or repair a truly historic building. That's not true. First of all, there aren't rebates. There are historic tax credits. There's no such thing as a rebate. Historic tax credits are when you have a historic property, you may apply for a 20% or 25% credit from the state and another 20% federal. You can get up to 45% of a tax credit on repairs and restoration of historic properties. So if you spend $100,000 doing a repair and you qualify for historic tax credits, you get a $45,000 deduction straight off your taxes. There is no rebate. There's never been a rebate, and Barbara was incorrect in talking about rebates. They don't exist. The other thing that she said is that she would have to seek the approval of one or more committees if this were happening, and it would become onerous. That is, again, not true, and I think Craig and Dawn addressed that pretty seriously. Actually, what the local designation would provide better information, a cleaner process, and cleaner guidelines for the Planning Commission. Because right now, it's confusing what's going on, and I think the best example of that is what the owners of the Oaks, the El Roblar Hotel, they've gone through in the last 3 years. They've gone through so much back and forth because there's so much confusion about the historic nature of that building. So this would have saved them a horrific amount of time. It also saves property owners the need to create historic reports because there is an overlay that, steps in for the historic report. So, and she also writes in her letter that this current push to designate the downtown comes out of fear and overreaction to what happened at Chaparral. But again, Craig and Dawn pointed out that we've been working on this for 3 years. So the newspaper and Barbara's letter are wrong about this fear and push to do this thing. So it's absolutely nothing to do with what happened at Chaparral. And it's, it's really unfortunate that the paper went off on that direction because basically the information was completely in error and people have been really confused from reading that. you know, she writes something about that this is a local Ojai residents seem to have done a good job over the past century. But, you know, in the last 10 years or 8 years, social media has really changed Ojai. Anybody who's lived here more than 10 years has seen serious changes in the last 5 years. I was told that 15% of the population has turned over in the last 2 years. So the changes that are happening in Ojai are serious, and they're happening really quickly. This would really help to have a set of local guidelines drawn from state and national guidelines to help people understand what's happening. And the Ojai Valley News, it's a similar information. She talks about how the commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, isn't qualified. So, you know, I'll just talk about my qualifications. I went to UC Berkeley. I had a minor in planning and design. I've served on the council for the National Trust for Historic Preservation for 12 years, which was founded by President Roosevelt in 1949. And I've been on historic preservation for 6 years. I've landmarked 2 substantial historic homes in Ojai. So I'll let the other commissioners speak to their experience. But, you know, it was really sort of sad that the newspaper decided to attack us as being not qualified. You know, I won't even, like, I shouldn't even talk further about that because that was ridiculous. So, you know, the newspaper also said that one of my favorite quotes that was wrong is that it would cost the city $100,000, but that quote was completely taken out of context, and the city manager actually said it was highly unlikely and highly improbable. But the other part of that is the $100,000 would come from fees that would be waived from property owners in the downtown district, which is exactly what Barbara Bowman was complaining about in her letter, that she'd have to pay more fees and have more permits to go through and more structure. But the city would actually be waiving the fees. So the paper's talking about how the city's losing money. Barbara Bowman, property owners, talking about how she'll have to pay more money, and both of them were, again, wrong. Anyway, I just, you know, it goes on, and we've all seen this, but I really just want to send out a message to the property owners. Give us time to prepare a presentation about what this means to you, how designating a local district works, how it's worked for other towns, what it's meant, and what the real true benefits are. You know, there really aren't any drawbacks. There are real benefits. And this is something that should have happened in 1960 in Ojai. You know, this should have happened 60 years ago. That's my comment.
Great. Thank you very much, Cindy.
Okay,
Jenny,
you ready for me?
I am.
You ready for me? Well, I, you know, often in these meetings have said that, you know, history is taking place as we're speaking. And the decisions that we make today, yesterday, tomorrow, are all part of Ojai's history. So I do like the comments that say that we, for the past 100 years, have recognized the importance of this. I love that. But it is also important for us to continue to recognize the importance of the downtown and its historic designation, which is, like, as we said, has already existed. But also, you know, if anything would change, it would not be our town. I mean, to those of us who live here, when we see downtown, it is our town. And it's not necessarily historic or different. It just is familiar to us. So I do think us driving in last night from the OVS basketball game, which was held at Villanova, and seeing the downtown as it appears at night, it was almost, you know, a bit breathtaking thinking about this conversation of why we would ever want that to change. It's so special. There are a lot of areas in this town that can, a lot of new buildings can be built, new housing can be built, and that has to go on. But this downtown historic designation, I think I agree with what Cindy said, is a really long time coming. And because we're in this position right now, that the state, because of Caltrans and the bike path history, and because of the state designating us as an historical downtown, that it's the perfect timing and the anniversary. So I also want to say that, and correct the many opinions about the timing of this research. This research was going on long before I joined the commission, and has been extensive. And you're right, it hasn't been public because of many reasons, that completing the research and also finding the time with COVID and other things going on with the council to thoughtfully present this to the council. I also believe, and we've talked about having public workshops to help the community understand all of the parts of what this means to the city, to them, to the business owners. I think that that would be a fabulous next step, to have an open forum to educate our townspeople. The other thing that I wanted to say, which Cindy mentioned, is I did also feel somewhat disappointed in the mention of the lack of our qualifications. We all know people from the paper, and we're all always available for a conversation or a telephone call or a text or an email with any questions at all. And I'm quite surprised that they didn't reach out to any of us and they got the information wrong. I think that's just disappointing, because I would have expected more from our local newspaper. As far as my experience, I have a degree in historical preservation and art history from the University of Vermont. And I have worked in the cultural world on adaptive reuse for cultural institutions in historic spaces, in transforming historic spaces into modern day facilities, how it affects the community around it, how it increases other preservation and awareness and safety and beneficial to the businesses. That has been my career. Two of the outstanding pieces that I worked on are the Andy Warhol Museum in Pittsburgh, which is in and the old Roebling's building, which built all of the wires for the Brooklyn Bridge. And to create an art museum in that historic space was spectacular and very much transformed the neighborhood where it is by recognizing those historic buildings. And also PS1 in Queens, which is a contemporary art museum that was converted from a schoolhouse in Queens to a contemporary art museum that later the Museum of Modern Art in New York recognized. This was an example of, continued ongoing work with the city of New York, the mayor, the city council members of Queens, and everyone playing a role in putting together these projects. So I think we can do that as a community and support these projects. And I also wanted to mention the El Roblar project and how sensitive and thoughtful they are being and reaching out for more information about that historic building. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Jenny. Valerie, where are we?
Let me unmute, sorry. Okay, hi. Yeah, everybody's telling their qualifications. I have a degree in the history of art and architecture from San Jose State University. And at the time I got that, our art history department was one of the best in California. the teachers. A lot of them had written art history books that were used all around the country. And I also worked in historical preservation for 6 years. And anyway, I think everybody made some really good points. The only thing I would add, and it's not a big deal, but I mean, I talked to Gina about it, is the thought of adding the city hall. And I was thinking that the jail is kind of at the same latitude or horizontal as the city hall. So it kind of would connect everybody together. It might, feel, it's just a thought. I'm not going to argue it heavily if people aren't interested, but I think it would all really connect together. And you can have historical districts that don't have contiguous or historical houses right next to each other. You can make little jogs, I think, from what I've seen when I've studied other districts in California.
Great, thank you, Valerie. Oh boy, the tug of war over the city hall. It's such a fabulous building, and it's so close. So I think we'll talk that one again.
That's fine. That's fine.
So I guess my turn. I talked to Wendy Barker. Some people may not know that I am a gigantic local history nut. I don't have the academic credits that everybody has, but I have the street credits and the collection credits. I collect all things Ojai. They joked the other day that I'm getting close to David Mason's contributions to the museum and the numbers that I bring into each collection meeting. That's because I'm getting older and I don't want my kids to throw it in the trash. My qualification I put in the editorial or in the letter to the editor it was David Mason who recruited me to come and be on the Historic Preservation Commission. And it's something I love doing. I've been to every city council, every meeting that talks about historic preservation, and froze my butt off because I like to sit in between the two heaters. But I am impressed with the quality of people that we have on our commission. And you've heard that shared. And not only the quality of people we have on the commission, the people that you heard with Craig and with Dawn, Elise, she sent an email today of support from where she lives, and to the staff that are here that are supportive of us. And trying to keep me in line on what I can do in my enthusiasm. And so, a big thanks to Lucas, to Mara, to Cheryl, I saw Sherry's name on here. I know James Hahn's in the background. You are the people that keep us able to moving forward. And we have worked closely with you and gratefully to you in the last several years. So I talked to Wendy and she said, well, what are your top 3 points, Brian? And here's my number 1 point. Ojai is a state historic district. Let me reinforce that. Ojai is a state historic district. That happened without anybody in Ojai knowing it. And we didn't know about it for 3.5 years until it was discovered. Thank you, Don, if you're listening. Number 2, the benefit of having a local historic district. You're not going to get a Mills Act with the way things are now. As you saw in the paper, and I think Grant Phillips of the paper, he has actually been working with us, has been very good in his reporting, and we thank him for putting out the adviso on this meeting earlier this week. But the benefits of having a local district are you can't get a Mills Act, which you saw in the newspaper, that is 40 to 60%, possible 40 to 60% reduction in your property taxes. If you looked at Grant's article on the 2 recent Mills Act properties, that money can add up. You're not going to be able to get money on a state or national level because you have to have a certified local historic district. Now you have to have a local historic district before you can get a certified local historic district. what's that going to take to make it from local to historic, filling out paper at the state level on time. And again, the additional tax benefits that come from the state and the federal. Again, you have to have a certified local historic district. There are financial benefits, as we talked about in our meeting. There is essentially free money that would come into our community, could come into our community that could help the businesses. People think, oh, well, look at all this money that the Mills Act people are saving. What they're not seeing is how much they have promised to spend on their historic properties for the next 10 years. And as we talked about in the council meeting, and Mayor Blatz was there, or Mayor Sticks was there, they balance out. So we are a downtown historic district. It's a done deal. It brought in requirements. You can ask the AT&T phone company. You can ask the Roblar people. It's our choice whether we want to go to a local historic district and be able to glean in the tax savings, direct tax savings, property tax savings. And then it's up to us on whether we then want to go to a certified local historic district and be able to get state and national benefits. The other thing I want to do is, I just want to read this real quick. Cindy Combry was first appointed March 22nd, 2016. She has been there since then. As you may know, the city council just went to where they were appointing the 5 commissioners we have, each from their district. Cindy was appointed by Mayor Sticks, April 27th, 2021. Or the appointment, yeah, I remember date. Okay. Valerie James was appointed by Councilman Haney, 8/10/2021. Jenny Prebor was appointed by Susan Francina, 4/27/21. Gina McCatton was actually pre this in her 4-year term, so she hasn't been appointed yet. She's just grandmothered in. She's not a grandmother yet, so we're going to be real careful with that term. Still, light years away, right, Gina? And then I was appointed by Paul Blatz, August 10th, 2021. So we didn't appoint ourselves. We're appointed by the council people who look at us closely before they appoint us, and we thank them for doing that. The other thing I want to a couple things I want to point out. People are like, well, we didn't know. Here's what happened. And I've repeated this in several meetings. We as a council or as a commission being appointed by the council are here to make recommendations, and you can go to the municipal code and see exactly what recommendations we do. We're here to make recommendations to the city council. And we did that. We finally got a meeting with them. Lucas knows how many times we were on and off over the last 5 months. I almost crashed when he told me we were going to meet, and I was out looking for a toy for my new grandson. So we've tried to do that. So we are appointed by them. We are an independent commission. We are not the the arm of the city council who goes out and takes property rights away from people, which is what I've heard in one of the many people I've talked to. And I've reached out to everybody who has on both sides of the question. We are here to make a recommendation to the city council. What we are not here to do is to say, hey, let's jump clear over the council's head and let's go talk to the voters before we talk to the council. Yeah, we're not going to do that. And we didn't do that. And now we have the 4-to-1 approval of the city council. And so we are moving ahead. Our first step was, and the only thing we wanted to do in this meeting was we wanted to begin the process of getting the information out to those many people who don't know what's going on and therefore are maybe making false assumptions. So we are here for the people that are within this historic district to answer any of your questions however we can. And if we can't get answers to your questions, we will get to figure it out and we will get you whatever answers we can, or we'll refer you to the fine people, Lucas and Mara and Cheryl at the city who can answer. That's who we go to in many cases, and so we can get answers from them. And again, that's why we haven't gone out to the community, because we were staying within our purview is, what our responsibilities are. Again, we're not going to jump the council and go and talk with their voters. It's their voters, and we do it at their direction. Not even great time. So where do we go from here? That's the last thing that I have. Anybody else want to raise any comments? Gina, did you have something you wanted to say?
I would like to get to our talking points and just work through them to see if there's any changes to that document, because I think that we need to walk away with everyone agreeing that this is the talking points that we want to when we're out in the community and we're getting asked about this, that we understand that we're all on the same page as the information on this is correct and accurate, and so we can move forward. We can.
Okay, so we're going to get that in just a few seconds. The other thing that I want to do before we leave the meeting tonight is, as I think it was Tracy maybe that said, what is your timeline? I want to figure out what are the things that we're going to do between now and the next meeting we have in March. So, but Gina, please, talking points. And before Gina starts, I talked to Lucas today. A lot of information came into the city today. Lucas, Mara, and Cheryl. Lucas was making sure that that information is available online to the city, and we'll have him talk about that in just a minute. Gina.
Okay. So did everybody get a copy of the draft Historic Preservation Commission proposed Ojai Downtown Historic District talking points to 1022?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does everybody have it available, open?
Yes.
Do you want to
Yes.
You want to take turns just reading one and seeing if the language is accurate? I did have a lot of help. After I did this, I sent it to Craig and to Brian, the ad hoc. This came from all of the meetings and discussions, both with the commissioners at our meetings, as well as addressing concerns that we have seen in the local newspaper, as well as that have been brought up at our ad hocs, to make sure that we are addressing everyone's concerns. So after I did that, and I got there were both corrections on it, then I sent it to Dawn, who spoke tonight, and I asked her to help make it bulletproof, make sure that we're not misrepresenting ourselves, make sure that there's nothing that can be taken out of context and a whole new story could be written about. I want to make sure that this is accurate and transparent and as helpful as it can be. So when we are out there and in the community and somebody asks us, we know what we're talking about. We're not guessing. We're not, so how does that sound? Just going around in the circle and just reading one by one? I think there's like 20 of them.
There's 30.
No, there's not.
There is, I counted.
Oh my gosh.
Either number.
Can we do 2 at once or 3 at once? Or maybe do 2 tonight and 2 the next time, 2 pages this time and 2 pages next time? It's a lot of reading.
It is. Well, just to see how fast we can get through it.
Gina, I don't have a printout of it, so you're gonna have to skip over me.
Okay. So I can start with this. The first one, that's pretty easy. It's like, what is a historic district? This just came strictly from, the sources. So it's just a historic district is a formally designated group of buildings, structures, sites, and spaces that relate to one another historically, architecturally, and or culturally. Ojai's downtown has been officially recognized as a historic district by the state of California. Okay.
Very good. Perfect. That's perfect.
I mean, that's just verbatim, so I don't really think there's anything that we're going to find.
Oh, I did have one comment. There was some discussion about when that happened, and so I had in my notes just adding, if you guys agree, was recognized as an historic district by the state of California 4 years ago. So I just didn't know if you wanted to date that.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. All right, next. Why does Ojai need a locally designated downtown historic district? Once again,
Commissioner McCatton, if I could just interject here. You know, our municipal code actually has a definition, and I provided that in the staff report of what a historic district is by our definition within the municipal code. If you don't mind, I can read that and see how it, right? Okay. Historic district means an area designated as a historic district by ordinance of the council, and which may obtain within definable geographic boundaries one or more landmarks, and which may have within its boundaries other properties or structures that, while not of such historic and or architectural significance to be designated as landmarks, nevertheless contribute to the overall visual characteristics of the landmark or landmarks located within the historic district. An historic district is identified in reference to its historically and architecturally significant character defining elements.
And that's in section 4-8.04 definitions.
Yes, I think that is, I mean, that sounds extremely accurate. So the question is, what we need probably to discuss first is, what is this document for? Who is this for?
For the general public.
I think
general public.
Well, it's not something the general public is going to actually have maybe a printout of. It's mostly just for our knowledge, so we can then present it to the public. And I think of it like on the Ojai historic, on the city of Ojai site that has a link to the Ojai landmarks. There's a printout that goes all the way across. It starts with your casual observer. I think of it, you know, it's like somebody wants to take a historic walk. You can look at that sheet. You can look at the names of all our landmarks. You can go for a drive or a walk. If you want to know more about it, then that's your middle ground person who's going to want to know what year, what significance it was, who was the architect, you know, why did we make it a landmark? And then there's that deep dive person who's going to want to click on that HRR and just go for it and read every single detail about the history of this property. So when we made this document, we like Dawn is a very technical person. I think you can tell by the way she read her thing. What is this document for? Do we want it like that, where it's this very in-depth discussion of it, or do we want to cut it down to be simplified for kind of like, we don't want to do the first column of somebody just doing a walk or the deep dive person, but that middle person that's going to want to know some information, but not so much information that they get bogged down in the semantics of it. So how do you feel about that?
You can have two documents. One that's
I was going to say, I think you need to start with a document like this that's in depth. There's a lot of, you know, people who are interested in this information, and you know, if we are speaking to the public or colleagues, then we don't need to talk about all of it, but maybe that's another idea to have two documents.
Yeah, we did want to make one that's like a one sheet that's just.
Yeah, it's always good to have a one sheet.
Yeah,
one sheet is much better, much better.
Yeah. So that's why this is an eternal. It is eternal for the commissioners. So we, so you're taking, because you weren't at all of our ad hocs. You don't. Maybe you know it's a lot of information. I mean, well, you're getting it from this once a month meeting. So here's all the facts that we came up with. Here's the reasons why we did it, and so you know that everybody has the same information, because now it's time to come together where we're not just this ad hoc that is meeting, that we're meeting. Because we are all commissioners and we're all going to be asked questions about this. And so we all need to have the same information that we all agree on as being what we want to present. So, I mean, I'm happy to copy and paste that from the code and put it in there. Or we can leave it as is. It's up to the commissioners. I'm fine either way. For this document, for another document, but for this one, do we want to take it the way Lucas said it, word for word?
I would suggest that because people are questioning specific codes, what is the code for that? I think it would be helpful to put at the end, you know, per municipal code, blah, 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 whatever it is specifically, this is the description in the Ojai municipal code.
Okay.
I would suggest that, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, 4-8.04.
4-8.04. Awesome. Okay, you want me to read another one, or somebody else want to read it?
I can read the next couple. Why does Ojai need a locally designated downtown historic district? Recognizing Ojai's downtown historic district on a local level affords owners financial and other tangible benefits, and in accordance with local historic preservation law in the Ojai Municipal Code, this is in quotes, so kind of what you just said, promotes the economic and general welfare of the city in order to preserve the historic, architectural, cultural, natural heritage of the city, and to make the citizens of the city and visitors of the city mindful of this heritage, end quote.
That is in 4-8.02.
Right.
I think in further, as we go on, we do talk more about other reasons why, but this is just the first, the first one that actually says why. But we keep saying like why as we go on, because there's other parts of this question. But that's the first meat of where it all starts from.
Okay, I think the next one is important too for many people out there.
Okay.
Why now? Do you want me to read that one?
That'd be great.
Why now? We started discussing an Ojai Downtown Historic District in 2019 at our last joint council meeting. Soon after, and because of the cost of outsourcing historic resource reports for the entire downtown, we created an ad hoc committee to begin to understand and research each structure in the downtown area. As we were finishing up, we realized that our efforts corresponded with Ojai's 100th centennial celebration. It is a most timely way to honor Ojai's historic downtown. And then the next one is important and being discussed about the timing as well. Did the timeline have anything to do with Nordhoff Grammar School / OUSD building? No. There was no timeline other than 2 years of extensive research working through all of the reports and historical significance of each downtown property. Because of COVID, we also had to wait 2 years to get back in front of council. Our joint council meeting on 1/18/22 was the first possible meeting offered to the HPC since our meeting got canceled in March of 2020. So 2 years we've been waiting, and that does not have any timing to do with the chaparral issue.
Actually, that's 3 years because it's a yearly meeting. So March of 2020.
Oh, right.
I'm just saying March of 2020 was the meeting that got canceled. We hadn't met them since March of 2019. So our last meeting was 2019. So it's actually another year because March 2020 meeting got canceled, but that was the 12th month already of not being with council. So it's actually another year in there, but it was just, I couldn't figure out how to,
So maybe we say something like, because of COVID, we also had to wait 2 years to get back in front of council. And then, 3 years in total, or so, 3 years in total since we began working on it, or whatever language you think should be there.
Yeah. Or how about since our meeting got canceled in March of 2020, which would have been our yearly meeting since our last one in 2019, or in spring of 2019, whatever month that was I think it was April or May. It was right when I first started on this. It was like the first month or second month I became a member, and mine was like right around Valentine's Day. So right around there, it was in the spring. So
Okay.
so I don't know how we want to say it, but if we want to just add, because it sounds like March of 2020 was when we weren't, we were waiting for this meeting, but we're waiting for the meeting, but it was our yearly meeting that we hadn't had yet. So
well, you could begin the paragraph with, during the past 3 years, or it's if it's really been 3 years since the topic was brought up and everyone sat down and began research, I think that it should say that. Okay. And the rest of that's very important. I think that's important to have, if it's really 3 years, say 3 years.
Okay.
Whether or not the Nordhoff Grammar School is included or not included in the DTHD, the property is already bound by municipal codes as an historic resource and is already a local Ojai landmark. I think that's a very important point to make. It's already a landmark.
Yeah.
The trees are landmarked, right?
Yep.
The pepper trees in front of it are landmarked. I mean, this is something that the townspeople should know. We should know that we should know this.
Yeah, we could cut it out right now, and it's not really going to change it for them. All they're going to do is maybe lose out on some benefits and resources that they could have,
right,
which Cindy has been working on with them. But I mean, it's not going to change for them. They're already landmarked.
Right.
There's no timeline.
Okay.
Want to keep going?
Sure. Will this district give the HPC power over decisions relating to property owners in the downtown historic district? I love this one. No. The DTHD and its identified contributing resources are already historical resources under state law. Therefore, state law applies to potential modifications to the properties. It is the responsibility of this commission to discover, report, and recommend on matters related to historic preservation. Discover, report, and recommend. I could maybe see a word like inform added in there. The HPC is an advisory commission. The city council has the final say. Another thing is, you know, the HPC is an advisory commission to the city council, correct?
Yes.
That's it. So
okay.
I think we should just say that.
Okay.
The HPC is an advisory commission to the city council who has the final say. Something like that, just really.
Okay.
Can I say something, Gina?
Can I make a couple of points after Commissioner James?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is great that we're going over it and making it really perfect. But just from being a salesperson, I know that if you have bullet points, it really helps for people that don't want to dive this deeply in, but you do need to convince them. It would be much easier to have just one page with bullet points, making all these into bullet points.
I feel like that's the
next goal of that one sheet
document. That's the one sheet.
And then there won't be as many people that are going to want to read 4 pages. They might want to read a few of the questions, but not all.
This is just for us, so we have this knowledge.
Okay.
Well, I think that, you know, a lot of colleagues that I know would want this depth of information, but I do agree that a bullet pointed one sheet is important to have.
And they could refer back to this sheet if they want to. You know, you could have, have bullet points, and then they would have a number, and if they're interested in number 1, they could go to number 1 on the in-depth sheet. You know, that would be really handy for them, I think.
Yeah, I think that plus we thought about this as it being a small town, and nothing is ever. I mean, we could say this is for us and just for us, but it's going to get out, and it's going to get into all sorts of hands of this. So it is what it is. We wrote this in depth for our commissioner knowledge, but it will be out there in the city. It's just the way it is. So
and it also seems from what we've been hearing on the street in the past week is that people are really interested in this information. And, if they're interested in making up a bunch of stuff about this that isn't factual, let's just give them the factual information.
Yes. Lucas, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add 2 points. And I think what this question, the response, is getting to one piece to the puzzle. I think in terms of how the district is created or how landmarks are designated, I think it's a true statement that the Historic Preservation Commission is an advisory commission, providing that recommendation that then gets forwarded to the council as a legislative action. But what I think is missing here is within that question is, will this district give the HPC power over decisions? So if a landmark or the district has some sort of revision to maybe a character defining feature within one of the parcels that has been identified as a contributor, then yes, HPC is the decision-making body, not city council.
Not really. I mean, we can give our opinion on it, but it still could come down to you to, I mean, I don't think anything that we say is ever truly final.
Well, and it depends on what scale, because I would think on a larger scale, the Planning Commission would be involved in some of these discussions. I mean, if we're talking about what did we deal with the man who has the bookstore, right? So it was, John Lambert. So it was, he was, saying that it was helpful for him, and it was the trellis to, and he had problem with the sun and what worked. I think that's one level. But, if we're working with, people like El Roblar and bigger projects and, possibly turning the Chaparral, hopefully turning the Chaparral site into a community center on some level, I think those will, no question, involve planning and council. Yes?
Yes, but
yeah, they will.
We can suggest, and we can inform, and we can research, and we could, but it still doesn't come down to us. I mean,
no, that's not. I don't think that's accurate. It's come down to us with Taormina. It's come down to us with plenty of things.
Yeah, it does. There are things at a certain level that stay with us, and we make the decision as opposed to making the recommendation.
But what we had said when we had this ad hoc was that we didn't. There's so much that goes on in those over those 10 decades in that downtown with overlays and guidelines and municipal code that there's not going to be any changes from the authority that we have now or don't have now. We're not adding to anything. These contributing properties are already contributing. They're already going to come to you if they want to do something to you, Lucas. You're going to weigh in on whether or not you think it's something that needs to come through to us. And that's the decision that you usually make, and then, get it in front of us if it's something that you want us to weigh in on.
And that's a true statement. I agree with that. Because
and that is a true statement, because I personally, over the years have had that experience with the front desk at the, City Hall, and the team, the in-house team is making those decisions. What's passed on, what's not passed on. I think that is important for the public to understand, that we have a really qualified in-house staff that's working with all of this every day.
Just a question. Dawn texted me, she has a comment. Can we hear Dawn's comment, Lucas?
Yeah, if you're okay with that, I think it's great. Dawn,
Cheryl, can you let, there she is.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Dawn Teading, just listening to your discussion, I do not have a copy of the document at hand, so I can't speak to the specific wording. But to speak and comment on Lucas's point, I think there needs to be, again, we go back to the distinction between this is already a state historic district versus what does it mean to add a layer and a local layer on top of it. So I'm not sure if the question needs to be revised or rephrased, because HPC will have, I think the wording was I don't want to say power over decisions, but HPC will be involved, but HPC is already going to be involved and is involved with Hotel El Roblar, with AT&T, with all of these contributing resources, because Ojai has been identified by the state as a historic resource and will be reviewed under CEQA. So I think that's an important distinction to make, state law versus what making it a district on a local level. What is are there, and this speaks to some of the comments we've heard from the public in the newspaper, are there additional levels of review that a local designation would add? Make sense?
Yeah, and that is what I don't think there's an addition. We were very careful, Brian, Craig and I, to not to look at the way everything was written and not add any additional layers. We feel it was very well taken care of the city now.
I think it's a question for staff, based on reading of the code.
Lucas is ready to answer the question.
And to Don's point, yes, there is a specific area that's been designated and identified as a state historic resource. So it's a downtown district. What we're talking about here and getting information out to the public is something that actually balloons out slightly. There are additional sites that are being considered with this district that are not a part as a local district. So it's not only the sites that have been identified through the state historic designation, but we're also looking at, I think the numbers that I was seeing, or at least that were provided, I think through Craig in his presentation earlier, were 28 sites through the historic district through the state designated, and then an additional 27. Is that what I was hearing earlier?
It's 16, 24, and 15. 16 landmarks, 24 in the California registry, and 15 additional that would be ours. So we're only talking about 15 buildings and whether or not you would come to us. And if you think about what you came to us when we did the land swap, or did you come to us when the theater was, the dry cleaners was becoming Topa Topa. So a lot of these decisions never made it to us because the city took care of it on the level, because the municipal code is written with preservation in mind. So those decisions, although I'd like to see everything just for fun, but we didn't have to, because it's something that so those are the 15 structures that we're talking about. We're not talking about hundreds, we're talking about 15.
Where did I get the 28 and then 27?
Craig, is that right? Because we had.
Yeah, is Craig still on?
Well, is it the buildings between is it the buildings between the ones that we've already designated? That are already designated
ones. A lot of them are non-contributing, but it's the contributing ones that are not part of the state resource that are part of ours. There's only 15 additional, because when we widened, instead of doing it from Libby's 1917 to 1928, we widened it from the 1870 to 1950s. We included other structures that were historic and that told stories of Ojai, but there weren't that many of them. There was only 15. So we felt that was a reasonable number to maintain, because those properties are already being cared for by the city, and they're already being flagged for anything that would be weird. They wanted to build some crazy gigantic structure with fluorescent lights outside. It's coming to planning. It's coming to, Lucas is going to be like, hey, wait, way before it ever. Does.
No, I agree with that. Absolutely. I just want to make sure I get the numbers right, because I don't know where I was getting 28 is that's the state designated number of sites. I don't know where I got 27 now. But then there's 15 that are part of the designation. And then what's the total number of sites?
24 part of the designation, 15 part of the local, the suggested that we are suggesting is 15.
Okay, so 9 of those 24 would be non-contributing, right?
No, these are all, we're talking the 16 landmarks, the 24 on the California registry, and the 15 additional are the total contributing. Those are the contributing. All the other ones aren't contributing. This is the meat of our discussion.
Okay.
And within that discussion, there's 15 that are just for local landmark status. The other ones are on the state registry.
Okay.
Or already landmarked.
Thank you.
Sure.
Where are we at on this sheet?
So let's talk about how that question is worded then. So, because it seems to be, will this district give the HPC power over decisions relating to property owners in the downtown historic district? We could start out by saying no more than it already has come before when something comes before us, or I don't know how we want to word it, if we want to change the question, we want to change the answer.
Can I make a suggestion? I
Please.
think you should say there won't be any changes if it's no more than it already is. I would keep these responses as simple as possible.
There will be no changes other than what already exists. No
Just
additional,
say, everything will stay. There will be no additional changes. It will be the same as it is now.
But once again,
that's what the big conspiracy is.
That makes sense on the the bullet point, one sheet. But what if somebody says, "What about this? Well, what about that?" It would be nice to have
what? Like what is this? But give me more information. What about this and what about that? What is that?
Well, the paper says that this is a power grab by the 5 white knights. So, you know, I mean,
I'm sorry, I can't even. I wish I was that white knight, but I think that I just think in a way we cannot respond to those kind of comments. They just don't deserve a response. But the question is a valid one for property owners and also people who we do have a few considering to landmark their space in the future, which is in that district. So I do think it's important to get right. I agree. I mean, maybe echoing the power, the word power is not necessary. And to just pull back a little bit from that and, you know, use the approach that Cindy's saying, like, that the decisions will take place in the same format that they already do.
And Dawn just texted, I think she might have had her hand up. It says knock, knock. She said that we should change the question to will local designation give the power over decision? So instead of just saying, will this district, to change it to will local designation, which makes more accurate sense because there is already a state. And then that's the answer is no, there'll be no changes than there already is.
Yeah, I mean, that word power makes me uncomfortable because it's so wrong. Yeah. Maybe we could find another word for that, but I like Dawn's rewording of that.
Okay. Are we comfortable going on with those changes? Obviously, I'm going to make these changes after the meeting, and then I'll blind copy to, I'll send it to Lucas, who can blind copy the changes, and then if everything looks right, great. If not, we can just keep. I don't know. Is this something you want to do? Is there somebody else that we can bug, or are you the person we bug, Lucas?
Lucas just stepped away just for a second.
I mean, is that who we? I mean, if we have like changes on this one, and then wait, how about this one word over here? I mean, every single time we're blind copying each other because it is timely, and we do need to have this done so everybody has it. How does the city want us to handle these small changes after I do go through and make these larger changes?
Maura?
I'm thinking, I mean, so far the way you created this was through the HPC and not with staff, correct?
This was done through the ad hoc.
Right. And you're getting staff input through doing this at this venue at the HPC meeting. And so I guess you would just continue that way. Lucas will be back in just a minute if there's anything else to say, because I don't see what the difference would be.
Well, the difference is, one of the hard things about these last couple of years is not being able to refer to Cindy's expertise on something, or Valerie's or Jenny's, having to only stick between, because of Brown Act, stick between Brian and I being the members of the ad hoc. And so every time that we want to reach out, we either have to wait to the following meeting, or we have to blind copy through the city. So as we make this document, that now we don't have the luxury because COVID was such a long dragged out thing where we could just wait to the next meeting, wait to the next meeting. If we're going to do this to get this document done within the next few days, there's going to possibly be a lot of blind copying. And I just want to make sure that we're making it the way you want it.
Well, Gina, it seems like we could do sections or even pages and transmit those going through Lucas and Cheryl like we have been.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think with the longer document, it's very important to have, you know, the city staff, I mean, at this point, at the point that we are, to have their input. And on this longer document, if there's places where we can add the actual wording of what is the municipal code, and if this is the deep, in-depth information, or even just the number, I do think as we move forward, I personally think that the city's staff comments and input is important. If they're willing to do it, if you guys are willing to do it.
So Lucas, the question, when you stepped away, the question was, how does this document move through faster, or move through from here forward? And and so my question, I guess, is what is our role in doing that, implementing that?
In terms of the review moving forward, is that what you're talking about? Because right now the commission is reviewing this document and kind of wordsmithing it, right? In terms of questions.
Let me update you, Lucas. All I want to know is I'm writing down all these changes. I'm going to make them, and then I'm going to send them back out to the commissioners.
Yes.
And I do that.
Go through staff, and then we'll blind copy everybody.
Right, but what if you know, Cindy has this, and then it goes back, and it's like, oh, and then Jenny notices that, and then it goes, Valerie notices this. Do you want this much on you? Because normally, like I said, COVID was so dragged out, we could wait till the next meeting. This is timely. We need to get it done. So as we're making these changes, if every time you don't mind us blind copying the, you know.
What might be helpful is just having each person sit with it, provide some red lines, and then sending that out to the group.
Yeah, or sending it around. I mean, can we do it like you would in, you know, any communications firm, where you would say, you know, one person takes it and puts everything in green and then sends it on to the next person, and they see those comments?
As long as we go through Lucas.
We just, yeah, yep. As long as we go through Lucas, and then, you know, I'm happy to help combine things, or I mean, whatever, however you want to do it.
The formatting.
But, I mean, it can be the formatting or the wordsmithing, because I think that if we all write our comments individually, someone still has to mesh them all together. Yes?
Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, I don't mind doing that. I mean, I
did
this, like I said, I did this with first with Brian and Craig, and then last night with Dawn till the wee hours of the morning. So
okay, then I think that we should put it all together, do what you said, get everything gets back to you.
Okay.
And then, you know, we have input from the city either before it gets back to you or on the final.
Okay, and Craig is trying to talk. Fine.
Yes, Craig. Cheryl, can you bring him in, please? There he is.
Okay, I just wanted to go over those figures that Lucas was referring to. There were 28 contributing properties that the Caltrans survey indicated as contributing. And of those, 4 were historic landmarks already. So there are 4 of the 16 historic landmarks that are down in that area. And so the HPC in their survey, they added 27, of which 12 were the remaining historic landmarks that were brought in to the district. And then there were 15 other properties that were part of the larger picture of Ojai history. These are that we documented thoroughly. These are things like the Ojai Valley Women's Club. This is like the old Presbyterian church that's now Byron Katie's offices. This is like the Lavender Inn. I mean, these are all, well, that's one of the landmarks. But anyway, they're all very important historic buildings that tell the story of Ojai. So they were part of our survey and not the Caltrans.
Okay, thank you. So it was 27. I was trying to figure out where the 27 came from. For total, so it's a grand total of parcels of 54. That's the magic number.
Although I don't know, because some of those are on the same parcel, how that exactly works out. For example, the city park has 3, I think. They have the jail, they have the sycamore tree, and they have the tennis courts. So there might be some overlap there. I'm not really sure how those details work out.
All right. Well, that's a starting point at least. Thank you.
Okay.
You're doing a great job reading. Want to keep going?
Yeah, let me just get my, okay, where did, okay. I think we are at, how did you come up with the map for the, maybe this is a little bit about what we've been talking about. How did you come up with the map for the proposed downtown historic district? The ad hoc committee looked at this in the most cost-effective way for the city to proceed. It was decided early on to begin by looking at our already landmarked buildings in the downtown. We have 16 Ojai historic landmarks as the anchors in the proposed downtown district. From that point, we began looking at each building around these landmarks and looked at many things. Maybe many things is, you know, too big. First, what kind of reports have already been done on the structure? How well documented is the information on this building? Does the building fit at least one criteria based on the Department of the Interior necessary to be considered a local landmark on its own? And what story does it tell as a part of this historic downtown? The map began to take shape as we began putting this information together. That actually is a lot of what you, I mean, includes the numbers and what you were just talking about. How do you want to work with that? I don't know, am I off?
I think I want to take out the, and we looked at many things, including not period and then first, because I don't say a second or a third. I just say first.
I think we should just say we looked at the following.
We looked at the following. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And I added on my copy, I just added some additional question marks, like it's a string of questions. What's the documented information? Does it fit one of the criteria? What story does it tell? Question mark, etc.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any changes to that? Because what I want to do is I want to get the chunk of the changes made that we're discussing tonight, and then we can go back and fine tune it if you still see anything with our color, whatever we want to do. We can share this document as a Google document. We can all work on it or however we want to do it.
What might also be helpful here, if I could, just a moment here.
Mm-hmm.
The question that's called in the beginning, how did you come up with the map for the proposed local downtown historic district? I think that's kind of the sense that I'm getting from the commission and hearing from the public, as well as there's a statement, I think, in the second sentence that probably should have local in it as well.
Okay.
We're going to follow that trend throughout.
Okay. Anything else? Ready for the next one?
That was yes, that's fine. I can't do that.
Okay, do you want to keep going?
Yeah. I got nowhere else to be. I don't know how you
really like at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, so Okay, so this I think, this
about
next part I think is important and can maybe be somehow combined, but it's all the Caltrans stuff. So I don't think that people really understand how we got the Caltrans information. So what is the Caltrans document and its significance? The city of Ojai wanted to make improvements for pedestrian and bicycle safety on Ojai Avenue. Did this have anything to do with the improvements in front of the high school?
Nope.
Yeah,
No,
they're both ATP.
Yeah, it's
Right,
both, yeah, exactly.
Right, but this was a report that was done specifically in that downtown 150 corridor in front of the arcade, which is why it triggered all these reports.
Well, that's because there was no historic locations out along the highway.
Right.
Right.
It was focused on this area.
Okay, so I think that's important that it triggered these reports. I mean, that's really, really important and relevant. Because there would be a use of federal funds, it triggered a bunch of reports on the area. Here, put it. Yeah, put it right here. It triggered a bunch of reports on the area, including historical resources. Are we naming these reports independently and without our awareness? The state determined our downtown to be eligible for both national and state of California recognized historic districts. Ojai Downtown Historic District is now listed on the State of California Registry, the California Registry of Historical Resources, as a recognized historical resource. I mean, I think that's a really important paragraph.
I did, during this original slideshow, I listed everything. It was a huge mouthful. And it was suggested by the commissioners that I take it out because it was too long. But for this, I can put it back in. And Dawn has I don't know if you see Dawn.
Yeah, well, yeah, she just texted me. Cheryl, if you could let Dawn. There we go.
Can you hear me? I need to come up with a better introduction. Instead of it triggered a bunch of reports, what it did was trigger environmental review.
Oh,
and
right,
so it's very specific under CEQA. It's noise, it's traffic, it's cultural resources, which includes historic resources. So it's very specific and outlined under both state and federal regulations what those reports were. Is that helpful? I don't want to say too much.
No, I think that's really helpful to be so specific.
Mm-hmm.
So you could even go as far as to say it triggered environmental review under state and federal law.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
If you'd like me to provide those laws, I'd be happy to do that.
Actually, you know, that's what's interesting about that is a lot of the pushback from the community was that power grab editorial about how we just ran with this. But this was triggered by state and federal law. This wasn't, you know, something, it's just a natural progression of how towns are protected.
Yeah,
I think one of the most powerful things is how we didn't know about it for a couple of years.
3.5 years. 3.5.
Yeah. So, you know, the state and the federal levels are actively working to protect downtown historic areas and protect the story of towns, how they are presented by place. It's a place making law kind of thing.
Okay.
Next.
Has this information that the ad hoc committee discovered been independently verified? The historical resources evaluation report for the downtown corridor was prepared by independent professionals and reviewed and approved by Caltrans. The State Office of Historic Preservation concurred with the determinations that the downtown Ojai Historic District is eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. That's great. but we haven't gone there yet, correct?
No, because
Okay.
we've been in discovery for the last few years.
Right. That's an important point. That's important. We're eligible, and that should be a future step.
Okay. Anyone else?
Anyone? Why is Caltrans map different from the HPC map? After 2 years of extensive research, the HPC ad hoc committee presented its map for the proposed district to the HPC. Shortly after, Caltrans' document from 2018 was revealed to us. We were happy to see that our ad hoc committee produced a map of similar shape with much of the same information. The key difference is the Caltrans document focused solely on the area of the pedestrian safety project, the downtown corridor on Highway 150. The state designated downtown district report only focused on Ojai in the context of state and national history. The downtown district was identified for its important association with commercial institutional development in Ojai, its association with Edward Drummond Libby, and as an early example of a unified, in quotes, Spanish town plan on the mission revival style, as well as for representing the work of master architects Fred Mead and Richard Requa. The period of significance is 1917 to 1928. There's a lot of information in that.
Yeah. It is, but it's also tells where it came from.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a lot.
It is.
Do we want to compare it to, do we want to list what our date range is?
Well, that's the next question.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Why does HPC map cover a larger area and longer time? The Ojai Historic Preservation Commission Downtown Ojai Historic District proposal, that was a mouthful, is more complete, considering all of Ojai's history on a local level. The local district would reflect the growth and development of the downtown from the founding of Nordhoff through the historic era, 1870s to the 1950s. It covers more themes and periods of history and architecture. It is more complete in that it includes the city's existing landmarks and other historic buildings. We feel buildings such as the Women's Club, the Old Presbyterian Church, and George Thatcher Memorial Library, the Ojai Arts Center, the Ojai Jail, the former Bill Baker's Bakery. I did try to get that owner involved in tonight's meeting, are significant to Ojai's history and should be included in the historic district designation. Now, we don't have the city hall listed in there, so.
I would like to add what Lucas said is in that big mouthful in the beginning, the Ojai Historic Preservation Commission Downtown Ojai, we should say local. And then at the very end where it says should be included in the local historic district designation. I think he says like that we should follow throughout this and keep that with the trend of always saying local. So
okay.
I would like to make that change.
Anyone else? We going on?
Craig points out the jail is already a landmark.
Oh, yeah, it's not that. So is the.
Well, we say existing landmarks and other important historic buildings.
Yeah,
I mean, we could add Chaparral because now the farmers market there is becoming, really important to the community. We could, we don't have the El Roblar on this.
Some of these are historic landmarks, and you wrote this, Craig. You wrote this one, but some of them are historic landmarks. That's the whole point. Is some of our landmarks aren't included on the Caltrans because it's from a different era or time or location because of the corridor. That's not what they were studying. They weren't studying side streets. They were studying a certain area. So that's why we felt it was important to include these buildings that are contributing both landmarks and contributing buildings.
What if we add something like after Bill Baker's Bakery, including others? I mean, do we have to list every single one? But there are others. You know, we have this, the hotel, right. We have this issue with the city hall. We have to, you know, figure out. I just feel like, yeah. Oh, and then the woman who, you know, owns part of the arcade and is very interested in determining that as an historic site. You know, there's a lot more that could go in here. But I don't think we need to string a name of everything. Right. What do you think?
Cheryl, can you bring Dawn in, please? Thank you.
I actually don't want to interrupt the current discussion, so I'm going to hold until Jenny and Gina and the group conclude the current discussion, and then I'd like to speak to 2 points.
Okay.
I'm good either way if we want to.
I think we're good.
Laundry list a few, or if we don't, I mean, what's the consensus? Laundry list or just say 1 or 2?
Well, I'd hate to forget one that could be relevant in an owner's mind. Brian?
Yeah, I'm reading through it. To tell you the truth, yeah, I know we could leave someone out, and we've looked at every single, I mean, we've been out there trying to go, okay, why do we have a gap in the those lines? And turned out it was somebody covered over a wall, or you know, put a roof over the top and made it look like there was a building there, and there wasn't. So we've gone out and walked to find these places. But you know, I always like a laundry list, because you know, 50 years from now, people are going to wonder, so what are those few things you're talking about, rather than
why don't we have the post office and the theater on there?
Because the post office and theater are part of the state one. This is ones that weren't included in the state that we wanted.
Only ones that weren't included. Okay, so is that
goes up?
Is that clear at the top? Only ones. Let's make that clear.
It covers more themes and periods of history and architecture. It's more complete in that it includes the city's existing landmarks and other important historic buildings outside of the state report. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Let's hear what Dawn has to say. Dawn.
Thank you. 2 points. I think it's really important that people do understand, and it is stated in this current question, that the Caltrans document focused solely on the area of the pedestrian safety project. So people should understand Caltrans did not do us a huge favor and look at the entire downtown and what might be a historic district. We didn't get that kind of report. What we got was, okay, we're going to put in bicycle lanes and ADA blowouts. And so it's called a APE, an area of potential effect, more than you guys probably even want to know. But that's why the Caltrans report was only focused on Highway 150 running through town and did not include these additional already landmarked buildings on what the ad hoc has laid out. I also wanted to go back to the earlier question, but again, I will hold that until we're done discussing this question, because I don't want to deflect and get everyone off topic. So that's my comment on this question.
Yeah, I think that might be a good, I just don't know if it should be in that question or in the following. So the local district would reflect the growth and development of the downtown from the founding of North through the historic era of 1870s to 1950s. To cover more themes, and then at the very end, significant to Ojai's history should be included in the local historic district destination that weren't included in the, how should you say it, weren't included in the Caltrans document because.
Can't you just finish it there?
Well, the idea is what Don was saying is the reason, like somebody will say, well, you know, the state of California doesn't think that Montgomery is historic. It's like, well, no, the Caltrans, or you know, the report wasn't paid to go up and down every side street in Ojai and look for all of our things. And I think that's is what Don is saying, that we need to let people know that it's not that it wasn't called to the state attention, because that's not what Caltrans was hired to do.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how we want to word that, but and where that should be, but
well, would you put that in up in the paragraph? Why is the Caltrans map different than the HPC map? Wouldn't that be a place to make that explanation?
Yeah, it's already a mouthful in there, but maybe the key difference is the Caltrans document focused solely on the area of the pedestrian safety project.
I would put it in the next question.
That's what I was wondering, if it should be in that next question.
Yeah, it makes tons of sense in the next question. Why didn't the HPC know about the Caltrans report before
no,
I don't know, the state designation? There might be a typo in there. The report was provided, I think this is the place for it. The report was provided to Ojai City Works for a separate project. We can say that, right, add it right there. And the dots just didn't get connected. I think this is where it goes. The report became critical on another issue under review by the Planning Commission, the Hotel El Roblar, in fall 2021, and came to the HPC's attention right at the end of our ad hoc committee's research. And I would put a date there.
Oh, on when it came to the HPC's attention.
I would put as many specific dates as you can. Yeah, I mean, right, yes.
So it was HPC. August, September. I know the report went from Lucas to the HPC and the City Council October 17th.
Well, when did it get to the Planning Commission?
That's a good question, I think.
You know, because I mean, we're talking about
I think Dawn might know this answer.
What?
I think Dawn knows this answer.
Oh, okay.
Are you there, Dawn?
October 2021. I can give you an exact date if you'd like. I'd need to look at my email.
I think we do have to thank Dawn for being on the ball here and putting. She's the one who did connect the dots. I don't know if we would even have this report if Dawn didn't connect these dots. So I think the city of Ojai we're gonna have to find another award to give you.
Let me just say that I'll give a little bit of background too, in case people wondering. I was at the museum in 2017, working at the museum when the consulting firm came in and inquired about historic resources in Ojai and what might there be. And the historian who came in actually told me in the email is in that 242-page report between he and I, that he already, just driving into town, recognized Ojai as a potential historic district. So that was on their radar all along. So there's two matters. There's when it went to the Planning Commission, I sent a comment and provided the Caltrans report. I believe it was back in September. Again, I would have to check my records. But then I received the letter of concurrence from the state that I provided to everyone this evening. I provided that letter in October, and that's what really, I want to say, sealed the deal on the historic district for Ojai on a state level. So you've got two dates to choose from. And Lucas could speak specifically if he would like to comment on the dates also, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, those dates sound correct. The important piece here is the documents from 2018. And the driver for that is the federal grant, and the federal grant through ATP is really the driver for that, especially since it was through Caltrans. So I think that's an important piece. I'm not sure where that fits in here, if it even fits at all. It's even written within the document itself. almost, and some of that history is already written into it in terms of the purpose within that, what is it, 247 37-page document.
And I think that is how we're going to have to word it, that it wasn't his purpose to go up and down side streets and to give us an entire city evaluation. It had purpose.
Yeah, I agree.
So that has to be in there somewhere. So I will work on that and everybody can see. I have a question, since we're down to the bottom of page 2 of this document. I really don't want to wait until next month, and I really don't want to solely rely on us all redlining this thing back and forth to each other. Is there any time that we can meet and just, I don't know, what if there's no such thing as a workshop, if it's if it's a formal workshop? I mean, this is so nuts and bolts thing. It's not really like item this and I mean, this is just us working through this document. Is there a time that we can do this that makes sense and that keeps us within Brown Act and all that stuff?
Actually, Lucas, I think if you notice the public 7 days, according to the Brown Act, we just have to notice the public to make it a public meeting that we can all be together, and that's a timeline.
Yeah,
so we should be able to do that 7 days, right?
Yeah, and I've been meaning to talk to Brian about the possibility of setting up a special meeting in the very near future. This item could be piggybacked onto that meeting maybe towards as a second item. But yeah, I think there's definitely a possibility. You're right. We are kind of getting into.
I went through this with the city about 5 years ago, and there's no rule that says you can only have one HPC meeting a week. The only rule is you have to notice the public per the Brown Act, and I believe it's 7 days.
Yeah, there's if you're taking an official public hearing action, it's 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah, it's less than that. If not, like, this would be a discussion item, so it's less than that.
But if we add
it's more about your time. Sorry, what?
I said if we had that other item that Lucas is referring to, then it might be an action item, which would make it to the 10 days instead of the 7 days. But I mean,
yeah, but we could do this as a discussion item separately, because instead of having too much at one time, I think, Lucas, it's more about your schedule and how the city can accommodate it, right?
Right, and I think it's also the commission schedule in terms of your availability, assuming that one, we've got the ability to do a Zoom. We have the floor, 2, and 3. This commission, each of you are available to do a special meeting. So I can talk to Brian offline in terms of working out a schedule there. There's something that him and I need to discuss specifically. And then I think this could probably go onto that as well. Absolutely.
So we're at the last question on page 2, and I think we probably, it's 7:21. I have to be honest here. I don't even know what's on the agenda right now. I've been so focused on this that I don't know. Do we have other things we need to do tonight? I mean,
there's 2 more full pages.
Yeah, so we can. I just wish there was just that roundtable discussion sitting around the, in the conference room at the city hall and just getting through it, but there's just not that way right now for many reasons.
Well, here's what I would recommend, that and Chair Akins and the commission hear me out here. There's a couple of things that I know we're getting into the meat of kind of the information piece. This is really going to kind of guide how each of the commissioners are able to respond to questions that come up, and it can be a resource. Individuals come and have specific questions. It's covering pretty much everything that I can think of, and I think it's a testament to this commission and to the community that's been involved in this. I'm wondering how we how this commission addresses public outreach and the timing of that, as well as kind of next steps. I think we've already kind of discussed what the next piece is, which is to get through the second half of this document, right? Yep. Kind of from that standpoint, I'd like the commission to have, if we could, have a dialogue in terms of public outreach, next steps, and kind of what that looks like moving forward, and how that outreach potentially could take place. Or maybe it's one of those where the commission takes those bits and pieces away, thinks it through, and then when we come back together through that special meeting, come ready to have that discussion in terms of what that looks like.
So Lucas, it sounds like we're going to put this on pause just for a minute. And I mentioned at the beginning, so the question is, and that's been bandied about, is what are the next step forward, going forward? There, one of the steps is contacting the properties that are within the downtown historic district.
The local downtown historic district.
Yep, local downtown historic district. So, so one of those steps is essentially the property records. The current property records, because of course we're going to need to know those in order to contact the people.
Right, the property owner information.
Okay, so we need the property records. We're going to need then, do you have any guidance on, just a second, Gina. Do you have any guidance on how we contact them? One of the questions that's come up is chicken and the egg type thing. Do we do a nomination, and what do we need to do in order to do the nomination? Do we just decide we're going to do a nomination, or do we have to do a precursor to that in trying to reach out to the property owners and get an indication from them on where they're leaning?
Excellent question. And I would pose that to the commission. A survey is an idea, a notice, a flyer. I think those are all ideas that I can throw out.
Okay, yeah, but my question is, what are the steps? Mm-hmm. The code indicates that we make the proponent, for example, Taormina, they made a recommendation that Taormina be landmarked. Okay. They did some kind of gathering of data beforehand, and the code seems to indicate that there's a gathering of data beforehand to get a sense on whether there is a 50% plus one. But is that done before the nomination, or is the nomination done before the gathering? Or
I think the thought is if you don't do public outreach first before you do the nomination, I think you're putting that cart before the horse.
Okay. So public outreach first, and then a nomination, and we would make a nomination to the city council that the landmark be, or that this area, the local downtown historic district, be landmarked.
Will be designated, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Gina.
So I just want to let you know that the document that we had at our joint council meeting, that was a spreadsheet that listed every landmark and contributing, and the address, periods of significance, architect, and the information that we gathered on it. That is now in the hands of Sherry Hambrick and Cheryl Davis. They have Cheryl. No, I'm sorry. I'm combining people in my head. They have that document now, and there's 3 more columns onto it. It's parcel number, owner name, and contact information. So I offered any help that they need from me on that, but that is where that is at now. It's out of our hands, and it's into the city's hands for adding that information onto it. So I just want to let you know that that happened today. And then the other thing is, there is a further question down here, and it's about, you know, the whole putting the carriage in front of the horse. That's one of the reasons why we ended up with this strange bad press on this, is because it's like, why have you been so secretive? Why have you not told anybody? Why did we know about this? You know, why are you doing it behind our backs? And that was the thing, is we were really trying to not put the carriage in front of the horse. We were trying to get that approval from council, to see that we had council that wanted us to go further on it. We didn't feel like we could speak to the public about it until then. So that's why there was zero public outreach until that meeting. And it's kind of hurt us, because we weren't able to get our message out before all this other stuff happened. But, you know, we'll just backtrack and we'll get out the information now. But that is why it wasn't secretive. It was just, we're trying to do these in the right order according to how it's supposed to be done.
Yep, we are. Okay, so public outreach, nomination, and so on the public outreach, we have the document that we're going through here that would be used in that public outreach. Is that public? And this is where the commission chimes in. What are the ideas we think of for a public outreach? Because I think we have the ability to go ahead and do that now based on the 4-1 vote from the council. Yes, Gina.
I think maybe we should speak to our expertise. I think that Jenny should try to see how it would be best to meet with the merchants to understand their needs and their support. And then, you know, just think of the different types of groups. Obviously, a lot of it's going to be through Zoom. It's a different time. So we can't just have this town hall, or we could, maybe if the numbers keep dropping, we could, but, you know, think of it like who our audience is, and try to get in front of as many people as we can, as quickly as we can, so we can answer questions and promote the slideshow or any other, this document, anything that gets this information out to people, so it's out there. Yes, thank you, Jenny. So how do we contact the people, you know, and is the people that you're associated with, is this the arcade people? Is this the downtown business people?
Well, I mean, my list today was, you know, business people who work with the merchants, restaurant owners, you know, that sort of thing. I think to formally do it, I would suggest a meeting with the chamber and asking for help from the chamber.
Okay.
And a lot of these people are not members of the chamber. I'm not a member of the chamber, but, you know, we've done things jointly together, and we can, you know, add to that group. So I also think we have to really think about what we're asking them. Please take the time to learn about this, ask questions about this. I mean, I think the invite needs to be very clear. I mean, this is not people who are against this mouthing off. This is like it's like a focus group, not a focus group, like a, you know, information providing. So I do think, I don't know, you know, we have to be, how do we be inclusive and exclusive at the same time? I mean, I just think, you know, it's like we need to inform certain subcultures within our culture. And then, I don't know, I mean, Lucas, is anyone having big town hall meetings? Is this an Ojai Libby Bowl meeting, or are we not there yet? Is this after?
Yeah, actually, Jenny, doesn't the chamber have mixers where they have speakers that come?
Well, yeah, but like Gina's saying, I mean, I can check. And
but
usually,
I actually think we should just go straight to a town hall at Libby Bowl. You know, I don't think the paper blew it up with their headline and their crazy editorial. You know, They just went all out to mess with the
I mean, I think that
community.
that was very, very irresponsible of them. And, you
Sell
know,
papers,
the fact
right?
that we need to clean up their mess is really unfortunate. So while I think I agree with you, like, yes, let's just go to Libby Bowl, but I do feel that some subculture groups, we could probably think of 3 or 4, you know, to have some conversation with them and information sharing would be good to do before.
Yeah, okay.
I think in more intimate little groups as well, maybe one big group, maybe a few little groups. Is Craig still around? I remember him telling me that he did this before. I think he met in front of, did a slideshow presentation and everything. It was like with the realtors and.
Yeah, it was the realtors, I think.
Oh, yes. Very important group. I talked to a few of them today and they had a lot of good questions. So I'm not sure any of them joined the meeting tonight, but that's a very important group.
But maybe we can talk to like Keller Williams as one meeting, and then whoever the other, I don't know who's in town anymore, Coldwell Banker.
Well, I think
whoever.
we call I can't remember her name, Peralta. We call
like
Peralta.
Like a realtor association. And we also could do, maybe we could do Clients Club or something like that.
Well, I don't know anything. I don't know anything about that, but I
think the primary group, it's the owners of the properties that are being affected. Those are the people. You know, the realtors are kind of sidebar to this, and
they don't think they
renting.
Right,
No,
but
I mean, the owners are the ones who need to be really have their questions answered and be really considered really carefully, because they're the core. Everybody else is subsequent to this.
I was wondering about that when we were talking about consensus of that, how we show consensus. And it's like, can we, I mean, there's not that many of them. We're not like we're talking we're Los Angeles. We're talking about, you know, a few dozen people. Can we, can the ad hoc meet with, you know, offer several different times and have a city official there or have it recorded and, you know, offer like, you know, 3 or 4 different times so somebody can't make one, they can make another, and just these small intimate informationals that we can go through and address their concerns, and then basically, you know, see their consensus. If they still aren't for it for whatever reason, or they're for it, we have it recorded, and that would show consensus or not.
I think the best way to communicate it, not thinking about time and what's happened with the paper and, you know, and the kind of remnants of the Chaparral school situation, the best thing to do would be to put together, as Gina said, small focus groups that are by invitation, but yet open to anyone. If I'm invited and my girlfriend hears about it and she wants to come, of course she can come. You know, that kind of thing where you're running the same information. I mean, that's what we have to decide, like, what's the information we're putting out? I don't think it's the same presentation that it was to the city council, but, you know, what's the presentation? Here's the presentation. It's short and sweet. Here's a printed document. We are here to answer questions. That's what I think is ideal as the follow-up to a town hall in Libbyville.
Okay, so my suggestion, and I don't know how this is going to work with Lucas, is are the 5 commissioners here willing for 1 month to meet weekly? I mean, if we're going to try to do a slide presentation, we're going to, I mean, we're on a time frame now too. Once we do a nomination too, it's like 30 days we have to do. I mean, what if we just met, and this is working on the slides? Because if it's just the ad hoc, which is fine to be the ad hoc, we still have to come and bring it to you guys, and then we're losing out on your voices. So this is a citywide concern of this down. We're not doing this because of some, you know, house on a hill that we want to landmark. This is their downtown historic district. This is a 1 in 100 year opportunity to do this. Why can't we meet weekly for a month and just bang it out?
Well, how are we allowed to conduct these information sharing? Are we allowed to do them in person? Is it only Zoom?
We can't conduct the informationals until we have the information. We don't have the information until we have a one sheet. We have a shorter, very shorter slide presentation, getting down to what it is we need to say to property owners, instead of, like you said, it's different to when it was to council. But this is going to take some time in preparation. And if we're meeting once a month, it's really not going to work, especially if we're trying to do this in time for our centennial.
Hey, Lucas, can we do so we have an ad hoc, we only have 2 members in there. Can we change out the ad hoc members, or can we form a new ad hoc committee that's, okay, you're the ad hoc committee that's going to look at the, this document, and we're giving you full power to do it and approve it, and you don't need to talk to us.
This is absolutely within the discussion item, so yes.
Okay. So we could say, Jenny and Gina, you're the ad hoc committee, and in rewriting this document, and then when you're done with it, send it out through Lucas and Cheryl to the rest of the group, and so we can get a consensus.
That's a great idea.
Okay, because I don't think all of us need to weigh in on the document on every page as we go forward. I mean, we got here with few of us, and again, there's other people who are outside the ad hoc that can join that group.
Right, we can utilize the Craig, Don, and Elise power trio.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I would like to do. I would like to have Gina and Jenny be the initial force behind getting this document in the place it is. And then when they get to a consensus, they can send it through the pipeline to get it to the rest of us, going copied to us.
I know if I was to be a part of this, to do the slide presentation, since I've already done it, do this document since I've already done it, and work with Jenny on finishing it all up, then as far as doing, planning these events, and maybe then I could pass it off to being, Cindy, that she has a lot of expertise in presentations, and I mean her career, and Jenny, they could do that.
Are we only allowed to work with 2 people?
Yeah.
Is that it? I mean, this seems so silly.
We were a 7 commission, but we got knocked down to 5, and when that happened, we could only do 2 because it can't be a consensus.
Yeah, it becomes a serial meeting. It's a Brown Act violation.
But it's a presentation. We're not consenting on decision making, right?
Well, if it's anything that might ever be agendized, we can't discuss it.
Yep. Because what it does is it potentially puts commissioners that were there in jeopardy of being able to vote, because it's a presupposed. There's the idea that it's a presupposed. What's the word I'm looking for? Not a decision, but you're identifying the way in which you may be voting, and that's the challenge.
Private sharing of information. We all need to lobby to get back to 7 commissioners, like the way it was for 95 years, because it is much more functional for groups to get anything done.
Well, I mean, I think also, just sensing the climate out there, it might, help us be a little bit more endeared to the public if we have 7.
Who got to say 7? Was it Arts or Parks and Rec? Arts Council stayed at 7. We should have talked to them.
There's a push to cut it back to 5 right now because there are 2 vacancies. This is a city council decision that one particular city councilman pushed for several years and finally got it through. And I have a lot of opinions about that. But I think we should all try to get back to 7. It just works better for everybody. And it doesn't cost the city anything. We're volunteers.
Yeah. Let's focus our energy on something that
Let's
we
say
can
the same thing.
achieve within the next month.
Yeah, Chair Akins, if I could, just for a moment. So it sounds like Commissioner McHatton and Commissioner Prebor as a part of the ad hoc. Is there a consensus with the rest of the commissioners? I'm just curious because I have an idea on how you may be able to, and I think it revolves around kind of how this this ad hoc committee for the historic downtown district has continued to move forward. You've got great resources outside of this body, two of which are in the attendees.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm good with Jenny and Prebor taking this and running with it. And then when they get to a product that they feel comfortable with, sending it back through staff to the rest of the group.
Yep.
I'm excited to get to know Jenny.
Okay.
Valerie, Cindy, do you have concerns with that?
No, it's actually very good because Jenny has such inside information about all the shopkeepers or whatever they are.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing actually that I wanted to bring up is that I get what Cindy's going for with the owners, but I can tell you that the owner of my building and the 5 around me is not going to be interested in this at all.
Oh.
Like at all. They're just MIA. So, I mean, they're barely interested in, you know, when I asked for a lease renewal, they said, well, what do you want? What's your idea? You know, so they're just kind of managing a lot of buildings. So I think that if we're going for the owners, like that little group, let's go for people who live here, you know, who are part of the community. I mean, I just think it's, yeah.
So they have more concern.
Yeah.
And who know people.
Okay, just a second. Cindy, are you okay if we cut those 2 loose and then they'll bring something back? I mean, it's not like they're going to go do everything by themselves.
No, that was my original idea anyway.
Sounds great. Okay. So we're good with those 2. Are the 2 of you good with that?
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we can make a quick pass on everything and have something, you know, to share with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or whatever the next 2 are.
Okay, Cindy?
I wanted to make one more comment about the owners. What my feeling that I got from the last couple of weeks when all the disinformation was spewed out through the newspaper is that the owners felt disrespected. They felt like this was happening without their consideration and they owned those properties. And I completely understand that. And then there were some sidekicks to the owners who shall go unnamed who fomented that respect. I don't know why.
Pretty sure I talked to them.
But I really just want to be extremely considerate of this group. And I do agree that we should have outreach to, you know, the merchants and the renters and everybody that's involved. But they're the core group who are being affected, and they're the ones who are married to this. And they need to be treated with respect and consideration, you know, first and foremost.
Absolutely. And they need information.
Yes.
Yeah, and the correct information. And they need to understand, most people don't understand how city government works. That's just a fact. And I think part of the talking point should be, like right up front, this is how city government works. This is how we were constrained. And this is the law. And this is why this is coming to you as it is. And when people understand that, you know, they don't feel slighted. So we have to be extremely respectful of the property owners.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as far as contacting the property owners, is that Cindy and Jenny or Cindy and me? Who reaches
Brian,
out to the property?
You know a lot of people, right, Brian?
I think so.
So yeah, I really think that Cindy and Brian should do it. I mean, you know, I don't know a lot of these property owners, and I, you know, feel like the hystericalness was, you know, kind of unfounded. But I I understand what Cindy's saying. Like, let's give them the exact information. Let's give them the facts. Let's, you know, let's not neglect them.
So, Lucas, can there be 2 ad hocs? One for property owner contact and, you know, and outreach, and then one for education and information to put this together?
I think so, as long as they're not meeting together, because then that becomes a serial meeing at that point.
I don't think that we'd have a reason to touch that at that point. I mean, right. That's why I'm saying if we can have, it's gonna be weird not to talk to Brian all the time though. I got used to that.
Well, it'll be weird.
I was talking to Brian more than my husband.
Too. It's like we're swinging or whatever. We're switching partners.
Wait, I gotta go close the door. My wife's
We're swingers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to work with Cindy and put the list together, and you know, reach out and talk to business owners. They're probably more supportive than the people I've been talking to the last 2 weeks.
And we will get this document banged out quickly, so you'll have this information, so we're all saying the same facts and that are facts, that we're being very transparent. We're answering everybody's concerns. And so we'll do that first, and then second is we'll take the slideshow and we'll pull it apart and we'll see, you know, what we want to do for a presentation.
Valerie, are you okay if I work with Cindy on that?
Yeah, I think so, because you know a lot of the owners, and she's very concerned about the owners, so I think she should work on it.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. Lucas.
I also think that, you know, just because a lot of these people are concerned about hierarchy and power and who has the power and blah, blah, blah. The fact that the chair and the co-chair are addressing the owner's concern, it has a lot of weight.
It does. You're right. Very good.
Good point.
I agree. So one last question. Do we want to do that last contributing, non-contributing? I feel like that starts a different topic, even though I wanted to, like, we can say we got 2 full pages. That next question does start the next set of questions. So do we want to address that now and say we did 2 pages, or do we want to do that question on our next?
Actually had a lot. I had calls I had to make, and I'm late for them, so I could just drop out and you could continue if you want.
I think if we're getting into another topic, let's just stop there. And then, you know, there's going to be a chunk of questions addressing one topic. So I vote to just start the next theme, you know, with, if it's just going to be you and I, and we can bring it all back to everyone.
Good idea, Jenny.
And we can blind copy through Lucas when we have questions and everything.
Okay. Yeah, and you know, and as far as getting the information out, this is going to be up on YouTube tomorrow. So we can tell them, hey, you know, please watch the first hour of our meeting. You don't want to watch the second hour because it's way down in the weeds.
You really don't want to watch the second hour.
So Lucas, the other question then is, so we have the public relations, and this was the question that we had. By the way, Betsy just left us just minutes ago. She's hung in with us the whole time. She thinks we are all fabulous. And Lucas and I'm the one that made this remark, but Lucas and I are the only males here, and we're surrounded by fabulous women. And she's like, right on.
Okay.
She said, you are incredible. I'm so grateful. Please express that. Her son's home, and she was headed off to see her son. We all get that. We have sons. We get that. Okay.
So, Lucas, can we talk about future agenda items and put possible nomination, possible recommendation, you know, in the March and April spots? Can we, you have the El Roblar, I think, in that March spot right now. Can we?
Are we moving on to item number 3 on the agenda?
Gina's
I'm trying to, you know, people are starting to drop off now, like flies.
Okay, so March 10th is the next regularly scheduled meeting.
Right.
I have put Hotel Roblar on as a placeholder for a discussion.
Sounds good to me.
The reality is that all the boxes have been ticked for this to be scheduled for the next stage, which is to go before the Historic Preservation Commission for the HHR, or Historic Resources Report, HRR. Brian, I had meant to give you a call to talk through that before we met tonight. It just didn't dawn on me until I was looking at the packet tonight.
Yeah, nothing's better than live, but
we've talked several times this week. Each time I'm like, I got to make sure to mention this to him, and then I get cut off, and I'm like, dang it.
Well,
we're talking about it now, so let's.
No, I did get an email from Ramin the other day, updating me on the schedule.
Here's the reality: is that if this commission is interested in having a special meeting, which I believe there was discussion on that.
Yeah.
Let's try to iron that out if we could right now. I'll have to go back and check with the other potential commissioners. Go ahead.
Yes, Gina.
Is there a way that on that meeting, that special meeting, can we make it so this poor Taramino people can fix their windows and paint their dang house, please? Can we get that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
This is the 15-day notices we got.
Oh, you saw
but
this.
I can't say anything about that, right, you guys? So I'm recused from that.
You would be recused, yes, Valerie, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, but if we're going to have a special meeting anyway, it'd be nice. They don't have to wait any longer than they already have. So.
Yeah, I agree with that too, but I can't. That's all I can say.
It would require, so that one would just require me to kick it up to the Historic Preservation Commission to make a determination. It would be on both of those. Right now, it's out for review, consideration. If I've got a consensus from the commission to kick it up, I can schedule that for both of those items to be kicked up. That would speed up the process because right now we have 15 calendar days, and then there's the 10-day appeal period after that.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Okay. Well,
that's a separate item. Let's focus. I don't want us to.
Okay.
To get, but I appreciate that. That's a good point.
El Roblar.
Hotel El Roblar.
Do we have to wait till March 10th, or can we do a special meeting in like 2 weeks?
Potentially 2 weeks. The challenge that I have is that I have to do a public notice,
which is tomorrow. Well, you can't.
Which would have required it to go out this week if we were going to have it not next week, but the week thereafter. So it pushes it out an additional week.
Okay.
Where are we at right now? 10th to the 11th.
So March 31 or February 30? No, there was no 31.
February 31?
February 31. Try again.
Okay, Feb.
The earliest we could do it would be March 3rd.
Okay.
The first meeting in March. Let me check the calendar for the city to see if there's any regularly scheduled commission meetings on that day.
Are you going to give us an answer now?
Well, let's see if we've got a good accurate.
March 3rd. Okay, checking my brain.
Okay, so Parks and Rec Commission meets at 6 p.m. on Thursdays, so that wouldn't work. I can check in to see if they're going to have a meeting on that day, so I can look into that.
Okay.
Can we meet at like 4 p.m.?
That's an excellent question for this commission. Would you be okay with doing it earlier?
Yeah, and did you say we could put the Taramina thing on there? Because I know that person, the neighbors are wanting her to do her house. I know that, but
by March 3rd, the 15 days are going to be over.
Oh.
Lucas, is there any way of moving, going back to Gina's question, is there any way of us, saying, like tomorrow, tonight, hey, yeah, fine.
Figure out the earliest time, and then I'll shoot a couple days out. That's typically what I do when we're looking at a special date. It might not be on a Thursday. I think that's the other thing I think this commission has to realize. I'm noticing that literally every Thursday is eaten up.
Yeah, so
I'm gonna look at a different day. So let me reconvene and throw out a couple days for this commission.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Yeah, if you do that, then we can add this item if you know, that will help the Terramina folks. And then
Yeah, because they're real anxious. But I'm not. That's all I can say.
That is all you can say, Commissioner.
And then in that meeting on the 3rd, if we can get it together, then we can merge our two ad hoc groups and give each other an update.
Okay.
May be able to do it earlier than that. I have to look at the rest of the agendas for some of these other commissions.
Okay.
There's one on the 2nd. Okay.
Yeah, it
might be a Monday or Tuesday
to help get El Robler.
Right. Right. Okay. Expect an email from either myself or Mara tomorrow, throwing out some dates.
Okay.
And is Dawn and Craig, are they still alive on here?
I don't know. I haven't gotten a text recently.
They're still attendees, yes.
So do you mind that if Ginny and I reach out to you to continue this conversation and finish up this document?
Oh, Don had a comment.
Sure.
How
That's
long
fine.
ago was that?
Great.
I think we already got it.
We need we have a hand raised. We need a thumbs up.
A-okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
From Don.
Okay. Do we have any? So there's our future items. Do we have anything else? Any other business we need to take care of, Lucas?
No, these are the big things. That's what we're focused on right now.
Yeah, tonight was giant.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate it. I mean, the goal was for us to get information out, and we have met that. And I think by the responses we got, you know, people came and said, well, we just want information. And I think they came away with the understanding that we're working very hard to get them information.
Yep.
And I did not hear any naysayers, but I'll just keep my fingers crossed. Okay, any other thing, commissioners, that we need to bring up? So
no, I don't have any.
Not for me.
Okay.
Not here.
Not there. Okay. Gina, Craig, Don, Elisa gave us a thumbs up. I noticed it when I was going for my late breakfast at McDonald's. I just wanted something fast. Last night I ate my first meal at 8 at night. Okay.
Oh my God.
So
that is not healthy.
I know, that's what my wife says. Okay, well, I'm gonna close this. It's done. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And again, thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Mara. Thank